Today's podcast is brought to you by Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. When it comes to home and auto insurance, it's important to have the right coverage from a company and an agent you can trust. Someone who will help you properly protect the people and things you love the most. So if the unexpected happens, you and your family can rest insured. To request a free quote, find your local KFB insurance agent at mykfbagent.com. Kentucky Farm Bureau, big on commitment. Welcome to Kentucky Farm Bureau News, the podcast. I'm KFB News Magazine editor Tim Thornberry. Our guest today is Eric Mayberry. He is president of the Tennessee Farm Bureau Federation. And today we're talking about Farmland Transition. Appreciate you helping me with the story. Eric, we've talked a whole lot about Farmland Transition up here in Kentucky for most of the year. It's one of the things that Eddie has really been passionate about. And I know that you guys recently had a discussion panel. Was that at your state fair?
No, it was. We call it our President's Conference.
Oh, that's right.
It's just a summer conference there. Yeah. We get together, have a state board meeting a couple of days, and then transition right into our President's Conference. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we have potentially all 95 county Farm Bureau presidents and a delegation from their counties to come. We have, of course, young farmers participate and ladies as well. So it's a much anticipated and much enjoyed conference there for us.
Big conference. I know Eddie was tickled to be in front of everybody. Eric, obviously farmland transition is not an issue just here in this state, but certainly most places on the farm. Talk to me a little bit about Tennessee and where you guys are and the importance of it, and then we'll talk a little bit about the panel discussion.
Yeah, I mean, we keep getting reminded that the age of the farmer, and I think in Tennessee it's now 59, and I can keep up with that because that's how old I am. Last year it was 58, now it's 59, so it's almost like it's tracking me personally. But, and then the fact that the farmer's getting older and in the next I forget now the number of years, but there's going to be the largest transition of land to the next generation it's ever been, I guess. And so we're just trying to get prepared for that and try to think of outside the box ways that we can help our members and the folks in our industry just to be able to have resources that they need to make that happen as smooth as we can. We've got enough problems in agriculture today without having issues that just with handing it down from the parents to the kids or whatever. And so that's kind of what we're starting that journey here in Tennessee. Sounds like Kentucky's a little bit further ahead of us on that, but it's just a tough nut to crack, and we're wanting to get started on it pretty quick.
Yeah, Eric, I think it's been on the minds of a lot of folks for a long time, especially in Kentucky, and I'm sure everywhere else, there are some resources that maybe folks didn't know about. So I think that's part of the mission of this initiative is to seek out those. I know we have a couple of estate planners here from Southern Farm Bureau that work in the state, and I talked to both of them for a story we did a couple of months ago, and that certainly is a resource for them. But I think we're trying to unturn every rock, if you will, to find what's out there and what's not out there, see what they can do to discover to make this a little bit easier instead of farmers having to sell their land to developers or things like that. That next generation is really critical to the future success of our farms and our ag business, don't you think?
I do. I think it's the pressure we're seeing here in Tennessee is just you can just feel it. I mean, we've got a lot of work with our ag econ folks at the University of Tennessee Institute for Ag, and they've done some tremendous work to get the proper analysis and the statistics that we're facing. And it's we kind of went into this deal a couple of years ago with our Commissioner of Agriculture to try to put together some kind of legislation or some kind of a program, and everybody kind of knew, that it was kind of happening all around us. But whenever the final numbers, kind of come out at how many acres we're losing per hour, and what that, translates into as far as so many counties in the state of Tennessee. It's like 6 counties that we've added up in the last 20 years, and it's just I think 1.1 million acres and that's just a lot. And but it was really worse than we thought. I mean, we kind of anecdotally hear about farmland loss and it going into construction or whatever, or housing projects or industry of different kinds, and when we actually got those numbers, it even shocked those of us that we thought it was bad, and sure enough it was. But how we proceed from here, I think, is critical, because the one thing that those numbers that they had indicated was the fact that the trend is accelerating. So it's even in the last 5 years is more farmlands being lost than it was the previous 5 years, and then the previous 5 years before that. So we definitely know that we've got an issue to wrestle with, and just trying not to leave any stone unturned if there's anything, and because there's no two. Well, I guess there's some two situations alike, but there's so many different variables and so many different places in our state that it can be pretty complicated. And so the perfect answer for a particular farming operation is oftentimes a little bit different from the neighbor down the road. But just trying to empower everybody as much as possible to have all the tools in the toolbox that we have to be able to help folks address the situation.
Eric, I think what really spurred things on here is when we started seeing the information that came from the latest Ag Census report, and not just looking over the last 5 years, but looking over the last 2 decades, we really saw quite a loss of farmland, and I think that that really told the story. And if you go back far enough and then take those numbers and look into the future, it doesn't take too many generations to figure out that at a certain point, we get to the number 0. I don't know that anybody's looked at it that way. And certainly, as we say, we don't want to cause a big uproar, but, from a statistical standpoint, if things keep going the way we've seen them go, that's certainly a thought to think about somewhere down the future. It won't be in my lifetime, or maybe not in your lifetime, but it'll be something for our grandkids or their kids to sort of face. So it's sort of scary when you think about that, isn't it?
I do think it's scary. I mean, I think one of the things that we've been our own worst enemy. We've been very efficient as an industry as a whole. Our farmers are producing more and more, food off of less acres because of technology and the innovation in seeds and the chemicals and all the things that it takes to grow a crop or an animal. We're able to do more with less, and so that's kind of almost covered up the fact that we're losing land. But that can only go so long. At some point, you still have to have a certain amount of land to continue to operate. And I think there's some point in time, and that makes that discussion or that point harder to make with the general public, because they see full shelves and an abundance of food, and it's affordable, it's high quality, and we're doing a really good job. But then to try to have that discussion with somebody off the farm and and express our concerns about farmland loss, you've really got to explain it well, because it doesn't. I think the average consumer out there doesn't realize that until some of these statistics and numbers that we see with censuses and some analysis, that you have to put those numbers in front of them, and then they begin to get the picture of what we're doing. And like I say, at some point in time we go to zero. And I'm often quoted as saying that if you don't like being dependent on foreign oil, I can't imagine anybody wanting to be dependent on foreign food. And so I think it's everybody stands the opportunity to win if we can continue for being food secure here in the United States as a whole, because I just don't want any future generation to be beholden to some foreign country for their basic necessities in life.
Because you never know what they're going to want for it, if they'll even sell it to us, is a big thing there. So enough to know about oil embargoes. Oh, absolutely.
And some of those things like that. And I just think, when you look through history and go way back in history around in Europe and other places, there was wars that's been fought over food. I mean, that was the primary issue in the war. And I think that's what we certainly don't want to get in that predicament here.
Absolutely. Eric, speaking of the general public, the education component's really got to be significant as well to get those non-farm folks, the general public, the consumer, to bring knowledge to them. And how important do you think is that educational component?
Well, I think it's critical, because it's I think only 1.4% of the population is the farmer. Everybody else is, their employment's off the farm in some way or another. And so if we don't get a significant portion of those folks to understand the plight that we're in, we've got even bigger, task to be able to preserve farmland. But we're starting to see, in my opinion, I think we're starting to see some folks that have been off the farm for generations now, but they've moved in here from other states, other areas of the country, and they came to Tennessee because it was a well-run state. It was a beautiful state, and they moved into a neighborhood, and because they liked what they saw, and then now, after a few years of this exponential growth, now even they're beginning to get crowded out, and they're displeased with all the growth and the houses that's coming up around them. So there are those out there that have nothing to do with agriculture. They're beginning to see the situations that we're in, and then that opens the door to have discussions about farmland transition and food security and all those items that they might not think about in connection with that. But just the fact that their neighborhood has changed in the last several years since they moved into the state, and we know we're on the right track, because if they're seeing it, we obviously know we've got some folks in our corner at that point.
Eric, tell me a little bit about the discussion panel, or panel discussion you folks had during your meeting. A little bit of how that came to be, and what was the reaction from your county leaders on hearing this panel.
Yeah, so backing up a couple of years, we had our policy development meetings. We hold a dozen of those meetings across the state. In the last 2 years, every one of those meetings, farmland loss and farmland preservation come up in every single one of those meetings for 2 years in a row. So we knew then that it was on everybody's minds, no matter what part of the state that you were in, whether you're in the West Tennessee flatlands or the East Tennessee hills or everything in between. It was an issue in one way or another. And so we felt like it was really incumbent upon us to be able to put some extra focus on it. Especially last year, we had a preservation bill that was before our legislators, and the governor was behind it. There was money appropriated to get it started, but it ultimately it didn't get through our House Senate. and we're very, very disappointed about that. So part of our motivation was to have a good, robust discussion at our president's conference about that to help generate some enthusiasm and call attention to it to all of our 95 county Farm Bureau presidents, so they could get get in contact with their legislators and make sure we don't miss out like we did last year. And then the other component, I would say, of that panel discussion that we had was getting into kind of the nuts and the bolts of what can we actually do to help a farm family be able to transition land and keep it in production instead of being tempted to sell it for other means besides farming. And so we talked about capital gains forgiveness. We talked about resources that as far as transition planning, and then the preservation bill itself, which was basically an easement program where a farmer could enroll his land and get an annual payment to help basically supplement the income of the farm, that would help them be able to ward off the temptation to sell out and where it wouldn't be a farm anymore, it would be a housing project or whatever type of growth or whatever might be next door to them. So we tried to have a very, very broad discussion, and it worked out really well. We had some really good questions from the audience, and then Eddie Melton and Miss Alita Botts done a great job, along with the Deputy Commissioner of Agriculture here in Tennessee, Jeff Aiken. It was very well received, and that we have a survey at the end after the conference is over with, and it had some very positive comments about the information that those folks got. There's no real good argument, I don't think, against preserving farmland. Just maybe how we go about it. There'll be some differences of opinion, but it absolutely has to be done.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Eric. It is a challenge, I think, everywhere you go, it would seem like, and I know that Tennessee and Kentucky are working hard to do all they can to ensure in our states that we've got the ability to move this initiative forward, and we'll keep digging at it, I'm sure. If you guys need anything, you just let us know, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Same here, Tim. Be looking forward to seeing you somewhere down the road.
Yes, sir, Eric. I hope to see you soon. I'm sure we'll probably be in San Antonio come January at least, so looking forward to that.
Good Lord willing, we'll be there with bells on. Hopefully.
Amen. Sounds good, buddy. All right, y'all have a good one. I'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Our guest today has been Eric Mayberry, President of the Tennessee Farm Bureau Federation. To hear this and other Kentucky Farm Life podcasts, log on to your favorite podcasting platforms.